It's the Dynasty Rookie Review Running Backs Edition. We're looking at running backs and rookie years from this class. Kind of billed as like a not great running back class. I thought it was a little bit better going into it than what people gave credit to for it. I thought, the top guy, there was a couple good top guys, and then, maybe two that later rounds that would hit. The top guys didn't hit, but the later round guys did. We're going to go through some of the rookies in order that they were drafted, at least for the first few rounds, and then we'll talk about some of the guys in the later rounds, obviously skipping over others. But Jonathan Brooks here, the first running back taken, and didn't do anything. So I don't want to spend too much time about talking about Jonathan Brooks, except for the fact that I think I'm fine with like moving on from him if someone's willing to give me 70% of what I paid for him, 60%, because he retore his ACL. We haven't seen anything from him, so we don't even know if he's good. They brought back Chuba Hubbard, who we know is good and is going to be a problem for Jonathan Brooks for sure. And I don't really see his value going up, except for maybe at the end of 2025 and probably more like 2026. So I'm fine just cashing out. I don't know how you feel about it, but it's just not great for Jonathan Brooks stock. It's literally going to continue to go down until maybe December of 2025.
Yeah, I think I think it's a big gamble. So if there's a rebuilding team that's willing to pay you for the future, I guess it was a gamble to begin with. Mm-hmm. Everything's a gamble. So yeah. And the Panthers, they have a lot to work on in general. They were 6th lowest in rushing attempts anyways. So that's obviously not the focus of their game right now. So yeah, I'm fine moving on.
Yeah. And keep trade cut again, not the perfect tool, but they have him as a mid-second round pick, and I would happily take that, especially considering how deep the running back class is. So sucks. I liked him coming out of college, but that's just the life of a guy that can't stay healthy, basically. So Trey Benson basically stayed healthy, but we didn't see anything from him. He was I believe he was a 3rd round pick by the Cardinals. They also re-signed their running back that they had there in James Conner. They extended him. He finished the season on IR. We didn't really see him at all. The most touches I think he had in a game were like 12. He had a couple times. Kind of sucks. He got hurt like right when Conner got hurt. So it would have been nice to see him, for those last couple of weeks when Conner was all banged up, but didn't happen. And again, it's just another guy where it's like, we don't know if he's good. We haven't seen enough. He's going to be behind another running back most likely, unless he is just really, really good. He's also worth a 2025 mid-second. If you had to lean, these are the first 2 running backs. These are by far the 1 and 2 in this draft class. Like, it wasn't even a question. There was even a question who was 1, who was 2, but there was no question that these 2 were like the top 2 guys in this draft class. Like, is there one that you would lean towards in Brooks versus Benson? Is it just Benson because he has a better chance to play in September of 2025? And it's as simple as that.
Yeah, it's Benson for a couple of reasons. One, you just said, better offense also. Even that can be semi-questionable. Like, the Panthers were starting to turn it on a little bit. I mean, turn it on relative to what they were doing anyways. And the Cardinals were not looking great. And Benson's path to playing earlier and more is more obvious, I think, given that he's behind James Conner, who's getting up there, but he obviously is like a huge part of that offense. So
yeah, I agree. Although you could argue like the Panthers up and coming offense, maybe they're better, but I guess where we stand now, it's the Cardinals. Yeah, it sucks. I think both these guys are talented, but you need the opportunity. So I definitely would take Benson just because he's probably going to play in 2025, but it is a little bit concerning. Like, we just didn't see anything. Like, Amari DiMercado and Michael Carter like got on the field kind of before him, while Connor was healthy. So, I guess the couple of games where he did get a decent amount of carries, he looked good in terms of yards per average, but just not enough. The third guy taken also really didn't do anything. Blake Corum, 56 carries on the year, 200 yards, 6 catches. We made the mistake again. A lot of people, like they did with Charbonnet and Tank Bigsby last year, were like, oh, they're going to take, ETN and Kenneth Walker's job. Blake Corum's going to take Kyron Williams' job. Nope. Like, Corum, hardly played. He started to get in a little bit more in the second half, last 6 weeks or so. Beginning of the year, he had several games where he had 0% of the snaps, healthy all year. And then, at the end, 32%, 17, 14. And unfortunately, they didn't even really use him that last game where they benched basically all their starters. Only played 18% of the snaps. I don't know if because they view Corum as kind of part of that core that they want to keep healthy or whatever, but just another guy. We don't really know what to do here. He's worth a late second. He has value because he's on the Rams, and the starting running back for the Rams is probably going to be awesome. At this point, all these guys are, kind of just backups, handcuffs. And at least, Benson and Corum are healthy. So there's that. Definitely, I think I would take Corum out of all these guys just because if he does get the opportunity, I think he's going to be really good just because he's on the Rams and they're going to use the hell out of him. So do you disagree with that, or is he kind of just falls in that boat with those other guys?
As of right now, that's probably true. And yeah, I think him not playing much in week 18 is kind of a good sign. But I think similar to Benson, Corum's value as far as taking over the job or whatever was kind of injury based, because Kyron has had a history of injuries in the couple of years that he's played, but he didn't get hurt. He played every game besides week 18. And so that just didn't come to fruition. Good thing for Kyron, good thing for the Rams. But yeah, I think, basically handcuffs to these guys. And I think Corum probably, I think I'd still take Benson over Corum, but I mean, there's no real argument to be made there.
Yeah, I'm just going to take the one on the best offense and the one that I know is the true handcuff, just because how the Rams operate, that they're just going to give it all to Corum. So I should say we haven't really had stats to talk about. These are all up until week 17, so week 18 not included into these stats. We just haven't really had many stats to talk about. So it is kind of crazy to see Jonathan Brooks is RB29. Benson's RB24, and this was taken about a week ago at this point now, so that could have changed according to Keep Trade Cut. Corum all the way down to 38. So kind of interesting to see that. I don't think they should really be that far off from each other. Why is Benson 14 spots higher than Corum? Doesn't really make sense to me. Yeah, so just give me the lower valued guy that can get cheaper, I guess. We keep on moving on. Marshawn Lloyd, he was also taken in the third round. Also did nothing this year. 6 carries, 15 yards, 1 catch, 3 yards, was hurt all year. I liked Marshawn Lloyd coming out of this class, just all the analytical stuff and all that. But the truth is, it's reminding me already of Kendre Miller, who just, people loved as well, loved his running style, his tape, his analytics, but he can't stay healthy. He missed his whole rookie year. Or I don't think Josh Jacobs is going to go anywhere. I know they gave him a multi-year contract that they could essentially get out of this year. So there's a chance they do if they don't want to pay Jacobs a bunch of money, which would be good for Marshawn Lloyd. But, assuming they bring Jacobs back again, and he has to be he's going to be behind Chris Brooks as well, who's kind of took over as the RB2 for the Packers, and I think is still under contract. So another guy, Marshawn Lloyd, early 3rd round pick. Would you just sell him for that, even though maybe you took him maybe in the 2nd round, a little bit higher? It's probably right around where you got him. I don't know. But would you just cash out with an early 3rd round pick for him?
I mean, I guess it just depends on like where your team's at. But yeah, you mentioned Chris Brooks. But there's also Emmanuel Wilson, who we saw have some good run. Obviously, like not anyone you could really start at any point, but yeah, I mean, it's a crowded backfield, kind of similar to their receiving core, with an obvious like number 1 guy in the rush game. Packers were super run heavy, which is nice to see. It's as far as the running backs are concerned, but yeah, I guess I don't really have too much of an issue with that. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you're getting an early 3rd, like you might want to just consider and just re-roll the dice because, yeah, I mean, he was probably going right around the end of the 2nd round, kind of.
Yeah. If I could re-roll him, especially in this class, I keep saying it. Like this class is literally like can be 15 running backs deep. So like pile up on late 2nd, 3rd round picks because like you're going to be finding good running backs in those rounds. So.
Another thing I was going to mention when we were talking about the Benson versus Corum versus Brooks situation, Corum and similar. The reason why I rethought of it because about Marshawn Lloyd, it's like the starters in front of them still have a chance to have an injury, because their teams are in the playoffs, whereas the other guys don't. Like, obviously, we don't wish that on anybody, but it's something to pay attention to. Like, if you have an injury, if Kyron or Josh Jacobs has an injury this late in the season, like, it could really affect the value of these guys. Whereas the other guys are basically, they're on ice. Like, their value is not going to change for the positive necessarily.
Yeah. You did bring up Emmanuel Wilson. The reason I didn't mention him just because he is a free agent. So him and A.J. Dillon, if you remember A.J. Dillon, both are free agents. So, but Emmanuel Wilson, I think, is like I forget what designation free agent is, but he could come back. Finally, we get to someone who did something. Bucky Irving, I believe, was a 4th round pick to the Buccaneers. He was the RB16 in total points, the RB20 in points per game. That's half PPR. First half, he was the RB27. Second half, he was the RB11. 188 carries. Again, this is through week 17. So I know he had a pretty good week 18, so that's not included here. But 188 carries, over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. Caught 45 passes as well, which was a little bit more than I realized when I looked it up for 400 yards. Super, super, super efficient. I think I looked this up actually this morning. He was only 6 other players, and this is including week 18. Only 600 players have rushed for over 1,100 yards on less than like 215 attempts. Bucky being one of them. 2 of them were quarterbacks, so Fields and Lamar. So just kind of crazy. Super, super efficient. We don't normally see that. Kind of took over that backfield a bit. I mean, not really in terms of snap percentage, because I think it was like 50-50 even down the stretch. Where are you at with Bucky Irving, who, by the way, is all the way up to the RB8? Maybe he's even a little bit higher, but he's the top 10 running back according to Keep Trade Cut. He's worth a mid-first round pick. Would you cash out on that, or do you think you have something here for the next couple of years at least?
It's kind of hard to say, right? Like, it is kind of crazy. I see him currently at RB6. Like, he's right in front of Kyron, Jonathan Taylor, James Cook. He's 6 spots ahead of Ken Walker, and obviously it's like the shiny new toy thing, in addition to being really, really good, especially for a guy who wasn't getting much run basically until the bye week. And then they really like turned it on, the offense really turned it on. His biggest knock on him, I think, was his his size kind of a thing. Like it's like, well, he can't be the guy. Plus, Rashad White's there and stuff, and it's like, well, we definitely saw both of these guys be startable, especially in that second half of the year. So, yeah, like I'm really definitely. It's nice to have Bucky. I'm not super comfortable if he's my RB1 necessarily, but based on where you drafted him, like there's a good chance he's not. So, I mean, I guess it depends. Like if you could sell him as RB6, like, yeah, maybe you should cash out depending on where your team's at, especially if you're in rebuild mode. Like, but I mean, like it all depends on like what you're getting for him.
Yeah.
Like, if you could use him to like make a nice upgrade at quarterback or receiver, I think I would do that.
Yeah. I'll always listen to offers for anyone, especially running backs, just because it is so volatile. Just go back and look at, who was RB top 10 of running back this time last year, and it's very different. So I'll always listen, but Bucky is one of those guys where like I want equal or greater value for him. Sometimes I'll be willing to sell even slightly low on a guy because sometimes you just have to get a trade done, and I'm okay with it. Bucky, I wouldn't be, because like we've seen, we just got a great, we just literally got a RB16 season. And really, if you kind of just take out the first few weeks where he had 9, 7, 9 touches, and you go from probably just week 4 on, maybe you want to stretch it to like week 6, he was probably like top 10 easily running back. And he wasn't doing it on necessarily like dominating the snap share. So like that's a plus for him. Like we know that even if they continue to do 50-50, he could still thrive, which is always a fear for other players. So
yeah, and it happened a little differently this year but I mean, we've seen a good running back, or definitely like a startable running back, or I mean, even go back to Fournette, when Brady was still there and stuff, and like on the Bucks, it's like we've seen a good running back come out of this group, or out of this team rather. Sorry, and yeah, like I think there's something to be said about that, and like it's kind of funny. Like I'm just looking at him where he is in rankings in general. And it's like they're basically putting him equal to, Kyler Murray and T. Higgins, in Superflex, which is crazy. Obviously, I don't know if you're getting quite that done, but if you can, or even Rashee Rice, which like it's just I'm just looking at the guys that are around him, and it's kind of like, yeah, I would definitely trade Bucky for any of those guys in Superflex just to kind of get a more long-term asset. It's hard to say that about a 22-year-old guy who was really good in his rookie season, but it's kind of crazy to get 1,500 total yards and 8 touchdowns and you're running back 14.
Yeah, it was a really good year for running backs. I think I also looked this up earlier that this was there were 7 running backs with 1,300 or more rushing yards. And that was the first time we've had at least 7 or more since 2006. So, like, kind of when football was different. So it was just a really good running back year for sure. Maybe a few more touchdowns would have really helped him. But one thing I will say, and we can move on, Achane, bringing up Achane and like the yards per attempt. It is hard. I think he averaged 5.4, which 5.4, which for a running back is tough to translate to year after year. Over 5 a carry. That's really hard. We were talking about that with Achane last year. I think it was even like over 6 or 7 a carry, something ridiculous.
I thought it was like 8. It was something ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the highest in the history of the NFL, like with a decent amount of carries, is like 5.5. So, it's really, really hard.
Achane was 7.8 last year.
Yeah, and this year, what? He was like 4 point.
Yeah, 4.5.
Yeah, that's probably more realistic. So if you do think about that, like, it does bring down that like that yardage total. You bring it down to 4.5, which is still really good. We were talking about 850 rushing yards, which looks a lot less sexy than 1,100 or 1,000. So something to note there. But he also just could get an expanded role. That's not out of the realm of possibility for him. So, but yeah, interesting one. I'll always listen, but I really, really do want equal value here. I really do. And a mid-first in this draft, it's like I'm probably taking another running back where it's like I might just keep Bucky, So it's not as deep as last year's draft, especially for the more long-term value positions like wide receiver and quarterback. Tyrone Tracy, another guy who did something. I think he was a 5th-round pick. Was the RB28 overall, RB32 in points per game. Kind of much better second half. He was the RB23. Maybe not quite as good as it seemed like, but he had 780 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns, 36 catches, 277 yards, and a touchdown. He is considered the RB19 right now, so a low-end RB2, and he's worth an late first, early second. Tyrone Tracy, I mean, I'll just come out and say it. He was one I'm willing to sell high on Tyrone Tracy. It reminds me a little bit of like Antonio Gibson, not just like the wide receiver to running back comp, but a little bit because like, fumbles are an issue. And that was a little bit of an issue with Tyrone Tracy. And he was a 5th-round pick, and this running back class is super deep. And so it does make me feel a little bit better that Daboll, the head coach, is coming back. If he was gone, I would definitely been out on Tracy. Like I would have been trying to sell him, and I would have taken even a little bit lower value for him. He's coming back. That's nice. Singletary, I believe, is coming back. How their contract is framed, so they might not bring a running back in, but I'm still willing to sell high on him. Like sell him for that RB2 value. I don't know if you feel the same.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this doesn't do anyone any good now, but it's like the time to sell him was a month ago, like heading into the playoffs where he was still playing really well. Well, kind of fell off there after the bye week, but I think he still could have got, I don't know. I don't know about a more, but yeah, I think I'm okay moving on from him too. Like he could get the, it's hard to say because like we don't always know the path. Like we can see the path, and that's why you gotta have to shoot your own shot when it comes to this kind of stuff. But think about Dameon Pierce even a few years ago where he had a really good rookie season and they basically just, pushed him to the side.
With a new coach.
Yeah, new coach, which you said the coach for the Giants is coming back.
Yep, they already said he's coming back.
Yeah, so I don't know. There's a lot of like, who knows what's going to happen here kind of a thing. Like, yeah, like Singletary is going to be back, but I don't think he's necessarily a threat to Tracy's. Like, he's not going to be like the every down guy, because that doesn't really exist outside of a few select guys. But I mean, he's fine as a mid low range RB2 on your team, like good depth for sure. But if you can cash out and just kind of, get young all over again, the guy is 25 years old too. I remember that about him when he was coming in, like he was kind of an older rookie, but yeah, I think I'm okay moving on. If someone still really values him. But yeah, again, a lot of question marks on that offense in general. So like we don't even know who the quarterback's going to be.
Yeah. I think you mentioned like the time to cash out was like a month ago, maybe, but he also like it says he peaked at running back 18 and he finished as RB19. So it's not too far from like what his peak was. It's not like he got up to like RB12 or something. But yeah, again, I just keep saying it like this running back class could be 15 deep, and like there's going to be a lot of running backs drafted to teams And it's going to make you nervous about whoever that starter is. And Tracy feels like a prime candidate, potentially be devalued a little bit or not given an expanded role. So, but yeah, one more that I have a graphic for here is Garendo. He got in on some action here. Overall, he had the 82 carries, 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. He was really good when he played, essentially. I think I put one game there. I think I meant to put more than one game there. Basically, he had like 3 games where he was kind of like the guy where he was the starter and played most of it here. And, 15 for 78, 16 for 57, 9 for 34. I think he got potentially hurt in that game. I don't know. The injury for Garendo is not as serious. I like the size speed combination. Dude's an athlete at the running back position. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good running back, but I mean, he showed at least he could be in that system, and it's more the system that I'm interested in. And so I don't know how much. Obviously, McCaffrey's going to be back for the 49ers, but I think he's a pretty good high-end handcuff, and they might work him in a little bit more just to kind of maintain McCaffrey's health a little bit. So if he gets the opportunity, I think he's going to be really good. Do you value him a little bit more than like the other handcuffs, even though they have higher draft capital? Trey Benson, Blake Corum, guys like that. It's because we've seen Garendo. We've seen that he could be the guy.
I think people should think about him that way. I don't think that's like whereabouts is he now ranked?
Oh yeah, so he's
down in the 40s or something.
Yeah, down to RB 41 is what I got.
Yeah, so I think he's a good tier down candidate. Because Jordan Mason, restricted free agent after this year. Elijah Mitchell, unrestricted free agent. So he could easily be the number 2 guy behind an aging McCaffrey. And like you said, it's the system more than the player, but we did see him, fill that role for those couple of weeks, obviously small sample size and everything, but I think he's a perfect guy, to try and scoop up, especially if you have McCaffrey. I think you're going to have to pay a little more for him, but I mean, he could easily not be the number 2 guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see him get another couple of games this coming year due to injury. We know what the Niners do. The running backs on that team are just all valuable.
Yeah, I agree. I think I value him more than guys like Corum and stuff, just because I know that he's good and I know he can get the workload, and maybe he takes over that job at some point. So if McCaffrey does get hurt. And then, the other guys that we can talk about, some other guys that did things, Ray Davis, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, Jalen Wright for the Dolphins, I think is an interesting guy to potentially get as a throw in into a draft. It seems like, or into a trade. It seems like Mostert's basically done at this point. So it might be Achane and Jalen Wright next year. So that could be a sneaky, in that same coach and systems coming back, that could be a sneaky, just throw in type of guy. Anyone in particular you want to talk about that we didn't talk about? Kamani Vidal, Will Shipley, again, Ray Davis, Braylon Allen, any of those guys that you like. I like Jalen Wright the most out of the guys we're not making a graphic for and talking about, just because the offense and the potential there.
Yeah, he could be an interesting one, but obviously these guys are all in dart throw territory. We didn't see any kind of RB besides Achane emerge at all. It was kind of a little bit of everyone else on the roster. So it would have been nice to see a little more. I am excited to see what Kamani Vidal does in the playoffs, but I mean, again, like you got Hassan Haskins in there at certain points. I know he's kind of like the second stringer goal line guy, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of there's a lot of guys there. So, and it's the playoffs, so I don't know if we're gonna see anything from Vidal. So I wouldn't necessarily like count on that. But we know that like that offense, what they can do with the running backs in general, but the talent's got to be there, and we just haven't got to see it yet. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about guys like the guys that we're not talking about that actually did something, like Ray Davis had a game there. He became a little bit of a darling. It kind of when they were blowing teams out, and he showed he could be the guy. I think James Cook missed the game, maybe not missed the game.
He did. He got ruled out that Monday night game right before the game. Basically, Cook did.
Okay, so it was
that would have been week 6. It looks like because Davis had 20 carries for 97 yards.
Yeah, 20 for 97, 3 for 55. He played a decent amount in week 18 when the starters were out. He had 15 for 64. That was kind of the two big games. No, the game with 11 for. So whenever he had the carries, he looked good. And I liked Ray Davis coming out of college. He is a bit older, but don't really see him taking over James Cook's role next year. So, Braylon Allen, everyone is super excited about him when Breece Hall got hurt the week or two later in the season. And they kind of just split between him and Isaiah Davis. And I think Isaiah Davis is actually a better running back, to be honest. That's just my personal opinion. If I can get any type of value out of Braylon Allen, I will. Braylon Allen, I think he got up to I'm going to double check this. He got into the top 20s though for running backs rankings. Keep trade cut. So I think he's RB 33 right now. And it looks like he peaked as the RB 16 back on September 24th. Like, imagine if you sold him for that. And I would have definitely sold him for that. It's like, why did he get that high? I don't know. It was just, people were hyping him up. He has a little bit of a cult following just because he was like really good in college he was like 17 years old his first year. So
yeah. Plus he's not even old enough to buy a beer yet. Right. So that's,
I think he just turned 21.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, if I could still get any type of value out of him, I will, because he's still behind Breece Hall. And I think he potentially behind Isaiah Davis.
Is January 20th.
Nope. So you can't buy a beer yet.
I'll buy you a beer, Braylon Allen. Just don't. I shouldn't. I'm like admitting to I don't know. I can't incriminate myself, right? That's like in the Constitution or some shit. No, I won't.
Kind of overall, interesting running back class that there's still potential when we look back on it in a year because of guys like Brooks and Benson and Corum and Lloyd, literally the first 5 running backs that went in the draft, I believe, didn't do anything. And maybe even more than that. So it's just, there's still potential for those guys. We did have a couple guys hit. Bucky seems to be clearly the best one in this draft class. So yeah, Jonathan Brooks, Benson, Corum, Marshawn Lloyd, Jalen Wright. Those were the first 5 running backs taken. None of them hit at all, did anything. So thank you, Bucky. Thank you, Tracy. But just get ready for this draft class, because it's crazy with running backs. So any last thoughts here?
No. Sorry, I got kicked off again. I need to reboot my computer after this for our next video because everything just keeps freezing, and I'm like, I don't know if you can hear me anymore. No, I think that pretty much sums it up. We'll know a lot more. It's going to be so hard to know who to buy before the draft. In the draft, it's going to change so many people's values, but that might open up some value there too. As far as people. Doing the Blake Corum, Zach Charbonnet treatment to certain guys, so
yeah,
it might be a better situation then.
I would say, and this is for the running backs, maybe not just rookies, but all running backs. Just don't overpay for any, because this draft really could change things. So If you can get them on a bargain, then that's fine. But
yeah, who's trading for running backs in the wild card round? Like you better be getting a massive discount.
Yeah. But that is it. We'll be back with the receivers, talking about the receivers, which was that was kind of the highlight of this. Well, them and the quarterbacks were like the highlight of this draft. So we will see you all in that video.